Hello, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Ethan, and in this video, I will be making a game with my friend Sprix. However, there's a twist. We are only allowing ourselves 24 hours to make the game, and we are fully making the game without communicating. This means that we will be passing the game back and forth and adding our own touch based on the direction we want to take the game next. We will be fully programming the game with nothing other than JavaScript. If you've watched my other videos, you know that my experience with game development mainly lies with game engines and C++, so this will be a whole new challenge. Luckily, Sprix has experience with JavaScript and has developed and published various projects throughout the years using it. With that said, let's not waste any more time. We decided that I would get the first turn in developing, and my initial idea was making a 2D side-scrolling platformer where you play as a bicyclist. You have to avoid obstacles similar to Google's dinosaur game. I opened up Sprite and got to creating a cyclist. I decided that I'm going to leave the animations of the cyclist for later, as I am just focused on getting the cyclist into the game and possibly adding some gameplay mechanics. After that, I initialized the web page with the background to show things are working visually and put the word "Hello World" on it. After that, I drew the cyclist to the screen. However, the size of the sprite wasn't as big as I wanted, so I went back and rescaled it. After that, I made and coded in a temporary ground for the cyclist to ride on. Let's just call the cyclist Joe for now. He looks like a Joe. The last thing I want to do for my work block is to implement part of the movement system to give Sprix a base to work off of. At first there were some bugs, but in the end I got it working. Now I'm going to pass it off to Sprix to see what he does with the game. Unfortunately, Sprix was not able to record his step-by-step progress or voiceover, so I will be commentating his work. Getting the game back from Sprix, I tested out what things he added. He seemed to continue with the idea I had in my head. He added enemies that move and scroll across the screen, the ability to jump, and also a score tracker. This is definitely a good basis to work off of. I felt like this was a perfect time to add the animation to Joe, since his movement was fully completed. I made the sprite sheet for the animation and added it to the game. The next thing I wanted to add was a game loop that let the player replay the game after they lost. Currently, when you lose, the game just becomes blank and no more enemies appear. The next thing I wanted to add was keeping track of the person's high score to be displayed whenever they lost and continue playing. This gives a sense of replayability to players, because who doesn't want to continuously improve at a game? The last thing I wanted to work on was the flip feature, as Sprix called it. This is when Joe decides to flip upside down and defy the laws of gravity. If you've noticed so far, Joe's animation only works when Joe is facing upwards, so that's the first thing I fixed. At first I ran into some bugs, with the animation causing Joe to face the wrong way. Eventually I got it working, and now Joe pedals his bike while facing upwards and downwards. The next feature I want to add was jumping downwards. Currently the only time you can jump is when facing upwards, so I also wanted to add jumping when you're flipped downwards to avoid the downwards obstacles. Adding a jump in the downwards direction was definitely the hardest feature of the game I've implemented thus far. Similar to Sprix, I had to make it look like a seamless transition with gravity, instead of just teleporting Joe down and back. After all that, I felt like this was a great checkpoint to end my turn, and I passed the game back to Sprix. Passing the game back to Sprix marked the end of my time working on the game, due to the 24 hours coming to an end. In the last dying hours of the challenge, Sprix went crazy and ended up adding many things to the final game. These additions include revamping the graphics by adding a new background, enemies, and ground. He also made the game more interactive by centering it around both dodging and shooting enemies. Joe now has a hidden gun that he can upgrade using coins he gains by killing enemies. Lastly, Sprix also added a way system and displayed the controls for the game at the top of the screen. I thought the only appropriate way to celebrate the creation of such an amazing game was to go on vacation, which definitely wasn't pre-planned. We don't have an official name for the game, so if you have suggestions, please leave them down in the comments. Also, if you want to play the game, I've included the link to the game in the description. Lastly, if you enjoyed my game development process, feel free to follow me on Twitch to watch me work on future projects live. Thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed the video.